I scare easily, like really easily. When my wife stands in the hallway unexpectedly, I squeak. And a friend of mine loves nothing more than to make me play horror games. So he proposed REANIMAL, horror co-op. That's inherently less scary than normal horror. Sure thing, let me get my adult diapers and my blankie, then we can start. Full of anticipatory dread, I loaded up the game, we started playing, and I practically waited for the first scary thing. But nothing. Sure, there were weird visuals, but the lanky enemies and their ragged movement and unnatural contortions didn't scare me. They didn't even make me uncomfortable, really. Whenever we entered a new area, I waited for this big spike in scariness, but that never came. Instead, I was happily looking around everywhere for posters and masks and hidden areas. I was most scared when I feared we missed an optional area. REANIMAL somehow transformed from a scary horror game into, what does the game want me to do here so I can move on and collect more masks? I don't want to make it sound like REANIMAL is a bad horror game. I'm sure it isn't. But for me, it fell right in between uncomfortable body horror and psychological horror, in a limbo of fear. See, I played a couple of horror games before, both Little Nightmares games for example, and I found those scary. And The Evil Within 1 and 2. These two were a trip, not scary but deeply scarring nonetheless. Resident Evil never managed to clear the attic because I was too scared. For me, and I'm not sure how common that is, things are scariest when they're mundane. Contorting bodies or monstrous sheep aren't really what invokes nightmares, but a quiet hallway with squeaking floorboards when I just know there's something hiding? That shit is creepy. What's almost funny if you think about it, the harder REANIMAL tried to make me uncomfortable, the less I cared. But it did show me two other fears of mine. One I didn't know about and one I absolutely did. See, I have thalassophobia, which is fear of the open ocean, and a fear of man-made structures underwater, and like confined spaces underwater. Oh, and lakes. Lakes are the worst. So I really do not like being underwater. I also once wanted to be a marine biologist and begged my parents for diving lessons. Oh well, how the turns have tabled. The other scene that invoked fear in me was the little girl vomiting a fully grown sheep. Ugh. And no, it's not about the vomiting. For me, that was way too similar to a birth. And like, I never want to experience that. Birth is like real-life body horror of the worst kind. So, REANIMAL, this weird little horror game about sheep and lanky men, triggered my fear of getting pregnant. I only sleep with women! This literally can't happen to me! Oh well, the irrationality of fear, am I right? While trying to understand why I didn't react to REANIMAL the way I expected, I looked back at other horror games I've played. And I have noticed something. The weirder the enemies and tasks get, the less scary the game is somehow. I mean, the teleporting nonsense of Evil Within, the end bosses of all Resident Evil games, the tank section at the end of REANIMAL. That's all spectacle, not horror. It's like the games are saying, hey, look, a terrible thing exists. Even though it really shouldn't. Yeah, so does Trump, and rapists, and the gender pay gap. I think, and please tell me your experiences, growing up as a woman meant that I somehow wasn't scared by monsters that shouldn't exist, because there are so many monsters in our lives already. If I want to be scared, I only have to go outside alone after dark. Honestly, a gargantuan sheep is preferable to being assaulted and killed. At least I can argue that the sheep is only following its instincts. Maybe the reason I didn't find these horror games all that scary is because I can relate so much to certain tropes that they've completely lost their spark. You know what I find scary? Mr. X. A man hunting me, not letting me live and work in peace. That guy scares me. Well, that's nice and all, but what if I'm just not as scared anymore as I used to be? What if it's not the games, but me? To that, I want to show you a game that did scare me a lot. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. That's a puzzle game. In Lorelei, you play a woman that isn't Lorelei, I believe, and explore an old German hotel for a reason I cannot remember. Story-wise, this game was a trip, and I still do not understand what it's about. But from the first moment, I was on edge. It's just something about the atmosphere and the weird guy carrying a gun seemingly being everywhere in the hotel at once, just materializing out of nowhere, calling me Senorita before vanishing again. I felt stalked playing this game. The viewpoint switches in a way that evokes the image of security cameras. The angles are weird, as if someone is watching my every move. Everything is eerily quiet, but putting on music makes it somehow worse. That game is the epitome of mundane horror for me. Nothing is out to hurt you. If anything, it's clearly communicated where you are in any real danger. Only inside the Chris Club. And you can't access that one automatically. At the beginning, I said something about horror being inherently less scary when you play it together with a friend. Well, I did play Lorelei with a friend. Real old school. We sat in front of my TV with finger food and Fanta and passed the controller back and forth. Well, until we came back from the rat maze. See, the rat maze is like a turning point in Lorelei. To solve its puzzle, you need to steal 9 tablets from around the maze, fracturing it further with each stolen slate. And by doing so, you set free the maze man. Now there is something haunting the hotel. You know he's near when Lorelei's eyes flicker pink and everything around you starts glitching. That guy suddenly appearing and hunting you through the rooms? I never heard my best friend make scared sounds like that. We didn't fear the maze man for long though, because once we figured out what we were supposed to do, he was just another puzzle. And maybe that's the real thing to take away from this. REANIMAL was so clear in its communication 95% of the time that my brain didn't have any reason to be scared. Big monster? Run away. Boxes? Hide. Little guys? Fight back. I don't think REANIMAL is a bad horror experience by any means, but I don't get scared when things look scary, only when they make me feel uneasy in my surroundings. Maybe you can relate to that. I have no big revelation at the end, just the observation that sheep aren't scary just because they eat corpses. Until then, I'm Bika, and we did a lot of things today.